Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/Brian E. Denton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 176. Chapter 176. In the tavern, before which stood the doctor's covered cart, there were already some 5 officers. Mary Hendrikovna, a plump little blonde German, in a dressing jacket and nightcap, was sitting on a broad bench in the front corner. Her husband, the doctor, lay asleep beside her. Rostov and Ilyin, on entering the room, were welcomed with merry shouts and laughter. "Dear me, how jolly we are," said Rostov, laughing. "And why do you stand there gaping?" "What swells they are! Why, the water streams from them. Don't make our drawing room so wet." "Don't mess Mary Hendrikovna's dress," cried other voices. Rostov and Ilyin hastened to find a corner where they could change into dry clothes without offending Mary Hendrikovna's modesty. They were going into a tiny recess behind a partition to change, but found it completely filled by 3 officers who were playing cards by the light of a solitary candle on an empty box, and these officers would on no account yield their position. Mary Hendrikovna obliged them with the loan of a petticoat to be used as a curtain, and behind that screen Rostov and Ilyin, helped by Lavrushka, who had brought their kits, changed their wet things for dry ones. A fire was made up in the dilapidated brick stove. A board was found, fixed on 2 saddles and covered with a horsecloth, and a small samovar was produced, and a cellaret, and half a bottle of rum. And having asked Mary Hendrikovna to preside, they all crowded round her. One offered her a clean handkerchief to wipe her charming hands. Another spread a jacket under her little feet to keep them from the damp. Another hung his coat over the window to keep out the draught, and yet another waved the flies off her husband's face, lest he should wake up. "Leave him alone," said Mary Hendrikovna, smiling timidly and happily. "He is sleeping well as it is after a sleepless night." "Oh, no, Mary Hendrikovna," replied the officer. "One must look after the doctor. Perhaps he'll take a pity on me some day when it comes to cutting off a leg or arm." There were only 3 tumblers. The water was so muddy that one could not make out whether the tea was strong or weak, and the samovar held only 6 tumblers of water. But this made it all the more pleasant to take turns in order of seniority to receive 1 tumbler from Mary Hendrikovna's plump little hands with their short and not over-clean nails. All the officers appeared to be, and really were, in love with her that evening. Even those playing cards behind the partition soon left their game and came over to the samovar, yielding to the general mood of courting Mary Hendrikovna. She, seeing herself surrounded by such brilliant and polite young men, beamed with satisfaction, try as she might to hide it, and perturbed as she evidently was each time her husband moved in his sleep behind her. There was only 1 spoon. Sugar was more plentiful than anything else, but it took too long to dissolve, so it was decided that Mary Hendrikovna should stir the sugar for everyone in turn. Rostov received his tumbler, and adding some rum to it, asked Mary Hendrikovna to stir it. "But you take it without sugar?" she said, smiling all the time, as if everything she said and everything the other said was very amusing and had a double meaning. "It's not the sugar I want, but only your little hand should stir my tea." Mary Hendrikovna assented and began looking for a spoon, which someone meanwhile had pounced on. "Use your finger, Mary Hendrikovna. It will still be nicer," said Rostov. "Too hot," she replied, blushing with pleasure. Ilyin put a few drops of rum into the bucket of water and brought it to Mary Hendrikovna, asking her to stir it with her finger. "This is my cup," said he. "Only dip your finger in it, and I'll drink it all up." When they had emptied the samovar, Rostov took a pack of cards and proposed that they should play kings with Mary Hendrikovna. They drew lots to settle who should make up her set. At Rostov's suggestion, it was agreed that whoever became king should have the right to kiss Mary Hendrikovna's hand, and that the booby should go refill and reheat the samovar from the doctor when the latter awoke. "Well, but supposing Mary Hendrikovna is king?" asked Ilian. "As it is, she is queen, and her word is law." They had hardly begun to play before the doctor's disheveled head suddenly appeared from behind Mary Hendrikovna. He had been awake for some time, listening to what was being said, and evidently found nothing entertaining or amusing in what was going on. His face was sad and depressed. Without greeting the officers, he scratched himself and asked to be allowed to pass as they were blocking the way. As soon as he had left the room, all the officers burst into loud laughter, and Mary Hendrikovna blushed till her eyes filled with tears, and thereby became still more attractive to them. Returning from the yard, the doctor told his wife, who had ceased to smile so happily and looked at him in alarm, awaiting her sentence, that the rain had ceased, and they must go to sleep in the covered cart, or everything in it would be stolen. "But I'll send an orderly, 2 of them," said Rostov. "What an idea, doctor!" "I'll stand guard on it myself," said Ilian. "No, gentlemen, you have had your sleep, but I have not slept for 2 nights, replied the doctor, and he sat down morosely beside his wife, waiting for the game to end. Seeing his gloomy face as he frowned at his wife, the officers grew still merrier, and some of them could not refrain from laughter, for which they hurriedly sought plausible pretexts. When he had gone, taking his wife with him, and had settled down with her in their covered cart, the officers lay down in the tavern, covering themselves with their wet cloaks, but they did not sleep for a long time. Now they exchanged remarks, recalling the doctor's uneasiness and his wife's delight. Now they ran out into the porch, and reported what was taking place in the covered trap. Several times Rostov, covering his head, tried to go to sleep, but some remark would arouse him, and conversation would be resumed, to the accompaniment of unreasoning, merry, childlike laughter. That concludes my reading of chapter 176. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll now proceed to my reflection of the same. A Year of War and Peace, Day 176. Nicholas Karenina. It wouldn't be a Tolstoy talk if we didn't get into some serious sexual moralizing, so that's exactly what we're going to do today. Nicholas Rostov and his happy gang of army officers offers us the perfect opportunity to do so when they gather at a tavern in today's chapter to gawk, gape, and goggle over Mary Hendrikovna, the young and plump blonde German wife of a local doctor. Throughout the chapter, the gathered gaggle flirts with Hendrikovna, and Hendrikovna floats right back. She doesn't seem to mind this impropriety. Her husband, however, does seem to mind. We've discussed how Nicholas Rostov, learning from experience, is changing and maturing. He's still not quite where we'd like him to be. As he joins his officer brothers in the shameless flirting with Hendrikovna, he feels to consider how bad this must make the poor doctor feel. Nicholas must be aware that the pain that this causes the doctor. The doctor, after all, does not look comfortable at all with this business. It's a cruel game the officers play. Luckily for all concerned, the chapter ends mirthfully, with unreasoning, merry, childlike laughter, and not, say, with everyone's candles of life being extinguished forever under the avenging rail wheels of a train at Oberlovka station. Daily Meditation. Man is formed for fidelity, and that he who subverts fidelity subverts the peculiar characteristics of men. Then be an adulterer and faithless, and instead of a man, become a wolf or an ape. Epictetus, The Discourses. All right, that concludes my reading of and reflection on chapter 176. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for joining me today. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation to PayPal. The links to all that are down below in the show notes. Tomorrow, we're going to be reading and reflecting on chapter 177 of War and Peace. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.